Today we're going to talk about stress and its effect on your digestive system. In your autonomic nervous system, which is your involuntary nerves, you have two sides, or two parts of that. One is your sympathetic nerves, which is like your body's gas pedal, and the other is your parasympathetic nerves, which is like your body's brake. The way I always remember that is that like a parachute that slows you down. The parasympathetic nerves, your brake, is what governs your digestive tract. The whole function is mostly controlled by that. So when you are relaxed, calm, those parasympathetic nerves, the vagus nerves they're called, they are giving good nerve energy and blood supply to your entire digestive tract so that the hydrochloric acid can be made right, and the enzymes can be made, and all the neurochemicals and all that communication can happen correctly, and so you can have good digestion. That's what happens when you're calm. If you're stressed, either acutely stressed or chronically stressed, you're basically stepping on the gas pedal and not stepping on the brake. So what happens is you're getting nerve energy that's withdrawn from your digestive tract, nerve energy and blood supply. So things start to go wrong. The function starts to lessen. We're going to talk a little bit about how structurally how this works. Your diaphragm, which is a taut muscle that's right below your rib cage, and your stomach is below that, your esophagus is above that, and right in the middle of the diaphragm is this little valve called the lower esophageal sphincter. The diaphragm, when you breathe in, expand your lungs, the diaphragm is what pulls your lungs down. And when you breathe out, the diaphragm pushes up and it blows the air out of your lungs. The tone of the diaphragm, when it's relaxed, is actually taut, a good tone to it. That good tautness and tone puts a little pressure on that valve, and that keeps that valve closed or working properly. When you're stressed, acutely stressed or chronically stressed, you're not breathing deeply, because you breathe shallowly when you're stressed, and shoulder breathing and all that. When you're stressed, the tone of that diaphragm is actually weaker. It's flaccid and loose, which basically doesn't put enough pressure on that little valve, and the valve starts to malfunction. To look at this valve, when that valve is working properly, the food comes down the esophagus, slips through the valve, goes into the stomach, and the valve closes tightly so that nothing in the stomach can go back up into the esophagus. That's the way it's supposed to work. If that valve is weak or is getting loose, you're going to have contents of the stomach splashing up into the esophagus. Now, the stomach has a nice thick, or should have, a nice thick lining to it, which is called a mucosal barrier, that protects the stomach itself from being digested or burnt by the acid that you secrete. And we talked about in another segment, that acid that you make is very, very strong. Hydrochloric acid. It's supposed to be there. It's good. It's the right thing. But it's supposed to be in your stomach, and it's not supposed to be in your esophagus. So one of the reasons people get heartburn is because the reason you get heartburn is because you're getting acid splashing up in your esophagus. Your esophagus doesn't have that mucosal protection to it. So acid burns and really is very bad for your esophagus. So it's a very real concern. You don't want to be constantly having acid irritating your esophagus. That can lead to a lot of problems, particularly cancer, actually. So this all stems from the stress response. You can trace it back to that, because when you're calm, the system is working properly. You're making the enzymes, you're making the acid. The valve is closing it openly properly, sealing properly. When you're stressed, those things all start to malfunction, and that valve starts to malfunction, and it's not closing properly, and you're getting acid splashing back up into that esophagus. There are some other things that actually irritate or make that valve not work as well, and those are caffeine, alcohol, peppermint, chocolate, smoking, fatty and spicy foods. For some reason, those all kind of irritate that valve and make it not close as well. I think probably in a person who has good stomach function anyway, they can eat those foods that probably wouldn't bother them. But in some people who have, it's not working very well, those things could actually make that valve not work as well and be leaky. So really the thing, so you got to avoid those foods if it is a problem. But I think the most important thing that I want to get across here is that you really have to work on that relaxation response at meal times. We're so stressed, we go too fast, we eat too fast, we eat too much. There's a really good book called The Slowdown Diet, which I really recommend that you read if you have problems with this. It talks about literally taking your time with a meal, doing some deep breathing, even just a minute or so of deep breathing to calm yourself down, to basically get that parasympathetic nervous system going so that you've got good digestion. Because if you're eating while you're stressed and eating fast and watching TV or looking at the computer screen or doing your cell phone or driving, whatever, you're basically, your body is stepping on the gas pedal, and you're not going to have good digestion. So you can even look online. There's different resources for deep breathing exercises. It's not hard to do, and it really does make a big difference at getting your system calmed down. So that's a really important factor, and hopefully you can incorporate that into your lifestyle.